If you missed receiving a communion cup when you came in, if you just raise your hand and one of our team members will make sure that you receive a communion cup. We're going to celebrate communion a little bit later in the service together. I also want to say Happy Father's Day to all the dads and spiritual dads who are in the room or watching online. We are so grateful for you guys. I am so proud to be part of a church that has so many faithful men of God. And so I just want to celebrate you and the gift and blessing you are to your family, but also to your church family today. We love you and are grateful for you. Take your Bibles, open up to the book of Revelation, chapter 4. It's page 1091 if you're using the Bible in the seat around you. That's right, we are not opening up to the book of Luke. We are hitting pause on the book of Luke for the summer months, and instead we're going to go to a much easier book to understand, the book of Revelation today. As we get started today, I want to ask you this question. How do you determine what is worthy of your time and your attention and your affection and your trust? Whether unconsciously or consciously, we all have some type of filter that we use to determine what we put value in, what we think is worth us and our energy and our efforts and our focus. For example, if you are a normal average Canadian family, you will spend an average of $4,000 every year on vacation. A lot of families are spending anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000 a year on a family vacation, which means if that's average, that works out to be about 8 to 15% of your income every year going towards paying for vacations. So what is it about an experience that lasts for 1 or 2 weeks a year that is worth 8 to 15% of your income? We all make those kinds of decisions. Maybe you are not someone who spends a lot of money on vacation. You like to just stay home and binge watch things on TV. And so maybe you are like someone who watches shows like Stranger Things. Now, for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry, it's not that good. I tried watching it and couldn't get into it. But if you enjoyed Stranger Things, let me just say this. You spent 2 full days of your life watching every episode of Stranger Things. That's what it takes to binge watch all the episodes of that show. 48 hours of your life. So what is it that made Stranger Things worth 2 full days of your life? See, you are always making decisions that ask the question, is this worthy of my life? From the things you buy to how you spend your time, even the things that you spend time thinking about and focusing your energies on. The question of worth is a normal part of the human experience. And as we come to this passage in Revelation today, here's the big idea that I want you to remember. You will never find anyone more worthy of your attention, your affection, and your trust than God. The book of Revelation is a unique book, to say the least. It's filled with a lot of images that make people feel very confused and overwhelmed quite often. For some people, it's a scary book because it has predictions in there that don't feel like great experiences. It's got creatures that you have a hard time trying to understand what is exactly going on there in that passage. It's written by a guy named John. John was one of the disciples of Jesus who found himself living in exile on an island called Patmos. He was there because he was banished to that island because of his belief and following the teachings of Jesus and proclaiming the message of Jesus to the people around him. And while he's on Patmos, he has this revelation from God, this vision from God that he is to write down this vision and share it with a group of 7 churches in particular. But that message carries on for us today to be able to learn and understand what John was seeing in this vision. And by the time we get to Revelation 4, John brings us into this incredible, overwhelming, majestic scene that is taking place in heaven. He starts to describe this environment that is really hard to fully comprehend and put words to. He starts to describe the beauty and the majesty of the throne room of God. He describes it as a place with these unique stones and a rainbow and a sea of glass going through it. And it's just this overwhelming use of imagery to try to communicate, this is way better than anything you've ever seen or experienced before. He says that there's lightning and thunder that rumbles from the throne of God. The divine power of God is unlike any other type of power you've ever seen or experienced. And then we get to verse 8 of Revelation chapter 4. John sees this in his vision. Each of the 4 living creatures had 6 wings. They were covered with eyes around and inside. Day and night, they never stopped saying, "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God, the Almighty, who was, who is, and who is to come." Now, one of the temptations when you read that verse is you start to look at these 4 living creatures, and you start to go, who in the world are these 4 living creatures? And we go down rabbit trails and build all kinds of theories. That's one of the great mistakes that people make when they start trying to read through Revelation, is going through all kinds of rabbit trails, trying to figure out the hidden meaning behind everything. So just for those of you who are really curious about the 4 living creatures, nobody really knows. Everybody has a theory. The most predominant theory is that these are a form of angels, a group of angels who are in the throne room of God. I don't want you to make the mistake of focusing on the 4 living creatures and miss out on who the 4 living creatures are focused on. The 4 living creatures, they are in the throne room of God, and it says day and night, they keep saying, "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God Almighty." They are so overwhelmed with the bigness and greatness and the majesty of the God that they are seeing that they cannot stop talking about him. That phrase, holy, 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 it's put there for emphasis, for our learning, that there is nobody and nothing who compares to God. Like, I wish there was a way for me to use the right words to bring this home for us today. But the majesty of God exceeds anything that we can possibly use to try to describe him. Like, think about the most remarkable person that you've ever met in your life, or the most remarkable person you want to meet in your life. They are small time compared to God. Think about the most beautiful place that you've ever gone to in your life, or the most beautiful place you want to go to one day. None of it compares to what God is like. He is completely unique and separate compared to all other things. And John is painting this picture for us that there is a real God. I've seen his throne, and he is bigger and better than anything you thought was possible. The Bible is giving us a picture of something that every human being longs for deep down inside. In the soul and the heart of every human being, there is this need to know, is there something that transcends our current reality? No matter how good your life is or how bad your life is, humans always find themselves coming back to asking similar questions. Is there more? Is there something better? Is there something bigger out there? Is there something more beautiful or more powerful or a greater experience? Oliver Sacks was a British neurologist. Listen to what he said about the human need for something that transcends our lives. He says, to live on a day-to-day basis is insufficient for human beings. We need to transcend, transport, and escape. We need meaning. We need understanding. We need explanation. We need hope. We need the sense of a future. we need to rise above our immediate surroundings. And if we're really honest with ourselves, isn't that really why we place a lot of value on certain things in our lives? Isn't that really why we determine certain things are worthy of our attention and our affection? Because we're looking for meaning and understanding, and sometimes we just need an escape from the pressures of every day. And I know that there are many who are in this room or who are watching online today, and that sounds like a good idea to want something that transcends our lives, but you're like, Kirk, I am just trying to survive today. Things are heavy and overwhelming, and I'm just trying to make it through today. I'm just trying to keep up with my kids. I'm just trying to figure out my bank account. And if I have enough bills, if I have enough money to pay my bills. Maybe you're just going through a crisis right now, and you're like, I just need to make it to tomorrow. And if that's you, I wanted to say, this book of Revelation, in part, was written for people just like you. See, the very first readers of the book of Revelation, some of the Christians who were reading this for the first time, they would have understood the idea of trying to survive every day. The Christians that Revelation was written to, many of them existed under all kinds of economic and political pressure in their time. For example, if you were a craftsman or a trader in that time, you could only belong to your guild if you participated in making sacrifices to pagan gods. So if you were a Christian, you were stuck in the middle between choosing economic health for your family or worshiping God. You felt that tension all the time. So I want you to know, if you're feeling the weight of life in any way, John is inviting you today to lift your eyes above the present circumstances of your life and to lift them up and to see that there is one who transcends it all. To see how God is everything your soul needs to find hope and meaning. Now, I know that the problem is that for a lot of us, other than reading words on a piece of paper in the Bible, this picture of the throne room of heaven is so far beyond our ability to understand and comprehend that we end up settling for other things to bring us this sense of purpose to escape our lives. Sometimes God feels so beyond our reach that we end up just reaching for the things we know we can experience instead. And so we go looking for, what can money buy for me to satisfy that longing I have to give me hope? How can sex bring me a sense of transcending the stress and the pressures that I have every day? How can some new tech or a new job or a new relationship give me a sense of hope for the future? Or I just need to escape. And so how will binge watching or video games or drugs or alcohol just help me to escape the pressures that I'm feeling? Because trying to see God in all of his glory is too far of a reach for me. Fortunately for us, John doesn't just give us this vision of the throne room of heaven that we can't fully understand. He doesn't just declare that God is worthy in some theoretical way. He unpacks for us some very specific reasons why God is worthy of your attention and your affection and your trust. And the first thing he tells us is that God is worthy because he created everything. Look at verse 11 of Revelation chapter 4. Our Lord and God, you are worthy to receive glory and honor and power because you have created all things. And by your will they exist and were created. There are a lot of creators who are worth admiring. We have some very creative people in our church family who are very worth admiring. But there is no creator in the history of the planet who compares to the creator of all things. You've probably never heard of a guy named Shunpei Yamazaki, but he was an incredible creator. In fact, he holds the world record with more than 20,000 different patents. Like, I'll be lucky if I get one patent before I die, and he's got 20,000 of them. But those 20,000 patents and creations of this guy are nothing compared to everything that God has created. You think 20,000 creations is impressive? Scientists estimate there are over 400,000 known species. Samsung has 7,500 patents in the US. And every single human body that is in this room or on this planet has 30 to 37 trillion cells inside the body. Psalm 19 tells us the heavens declare the glory of God. So many of us, we are running at such a pace in life to try to keep up, to try to create meaning and a sense of hope and future and just survival with our lives, that we are missing the majesty of what is right in front of us every single day. If we lifted our eyes and slowed down and paid attention to the wonder of creation, it would point you to a creator who is more worthy than anything else you give your life to. It will point you to the only one who's worthy of your honor and your praise. And the crazy thing is, God doesn't even have to work hard to make any of it happen. He speaks, and it happens. He is all-powerful when it comes to his creation. He is a master artist. His creation is not only on full display, but so is his creativity. Several years ago, Shannon and I had the chance to visit San Diego for our anniversary. And we decided one day to go on a whale watching tour out in the Pacific. So we went, spent some money, went on this whale watching tour, and the tour came in just ahead of us, and they came back and we said, "How many whales did you guys see? It must have been awesome." And they're like, "We didn't see anything. We were out there for 2 hours, saw nothing." And I was like, pretty discouraged at that point. We're gonna go spend this money and all this time, we're not gonna see anything out in the water. Well, fortunately, we got out in the water and we ended up seeing a couple of big whales out there, and it was spectacular to see these whales out in the open ocean. And we started to turn around to come back to land, and I remember praying and saying, "God, that was awesome. I would love to see more of your creation. I would just love to see more of what you've built and accomplished." And so we're riding back in, and the captain comes on and he says, "Hey, there's actually a small group of dolphins that we're gonna go check out that we just heard about. We're gonna take a detour, and it's gonna be about an hour and a half extra detour for this trip." So we went to see this group of dolphins, and on our way to see the group of dolphins, he came back on and he said, "Actually, it's not a few dolphins, it's probably a couple dozen dolphins. It's gonna be really cool." And then we got closer and closer and closer, and then he came on and he goes, "You guys are not gonna believe this. You are in for the treat of your life. We don't get to see this all the time. You are about to go through what is called a superpod of dolphins." A superpod of dolphins is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dolphins. And we didn't take any pictures of this experience, but I have a picture that's like an example of what it's like riding through a superpod of dolphins. These dolphins were so close, they were within a couple feet. I could almost touch them as they're jumping up in the wake of the boat, and they rode with us for like half an hour, 45 minutes. It was awesome. Unlike anything I've ever experienced before in my life. Just the sheer majesty of God's creation on full display. But then when you understand dolphins, you also understand not only is God an amazing creator, his creativity is on full display. Every dolphin has a name. Their name is unique to the whistle that they have. And so when another dolphin in a pod wants to get Joe's attention over here, the other dolphin will actually whistle the same whistle that is Joe's whistle to get his attention. That's how the dolphins end up staying together and moving together in a pod. Now tell me, who in the world comes up with something like that? That does not happen by accident. That is what God does. And that creativity doesn't only show up with dolphins, it shows up everywhere in creation. God is the creator who makes every other creator look small. He is the source of life and beauty. Everything exists because of God. God does not owe you or me anything. We are all just living in his world. But for a lot of us, there's still this tension because you can experience the beauty of creation, but you still see the brokenness of the world. Vacation's great, but the grind and the challenges of everyday life are still the same. And the challenges of life always lead us to a question that some of us verbalize and some of us don't. But the question is there anyone or anything worth trusting our present and future to? Or should I just take matters into my own hands because nobody else can be trusted? Well, in the first several verses of Revelation chapter 5, John sets out to answer that question. He starts out describing a scroll that is sealed with 7 seals. Now, in the ancient world, a scroll often represented a royal decree or a title deed, a sense of ownership. So right after God is being described as the creator in this vision, the next thing we see is God holding this scroll in his hand. God is pictured as the one who holds the plan for human history in his hands. But this scroll has been sealed with 7 seals, another common practice for the day. What that did was it guarded the privacy of the contents of the scroll until someone who was authorized to break open the seal could open it up. Except for this scroll, John says no one was found worthy to break open the seals. No one was found worthy to unfold God's plan for us. This scroll is also described as having writing on both sides of it. Now, as someone who grew up as a Jewish boy, this could have taken John to another scroll that he would have learned about as a young boy. Another scroll that also had writing on both sides. In Ezekiel chapter 2 and verse 10, there is a scroll that is described that has writing on both sides. And this scroll in Ezekiel 2 is talking about the judgment of God coming on the world because of the sins of Israel. And in this scroll, there are words of grieving and warnings of God's coming judgment. And so John knows that. And he looks at the world around him, and in the midst of the hardship and the suffering, he looked at a scroll that could not be opened, and John just felt completely hopeless. Revelation describes John as weeping because there was no hope for the world. The only thing that was going to happen was God's judgment of sin on the world. But in the midst of the hardship and the suffering and feeling hopeless, God steps in a place where he's feeling like there's no hope and there's no future and there's no justice and there's no answers. Something else happens. While no other person was capable of resolving the tension and opening the scroll, Jesus steps into the story. The elders in heaven see a lion who has come to conquer. But when John looks, he sees a lamb who was sacrificed. Jesus conquers sin and death and evil by becoming a sacrifice to die in our place. And when Jesus came and he sacrificed his life on the cross, he did what nobody else could do. And nobody else was found worthy enough to open the scroll and unfold the fullness of God's plan for his creation. And because of that, today there is good news for every single person, that none of us have to live in despair over the state of the world, over the state of our own lives. God does not leave humanity without hope. God is worthy because he redeems what nobody else can redeem. Look at verse 8 of Revelation 5. When he took the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. Each one had a harp and golden bowls filled with incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song. You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slaughtered, and you purchased people for God by your blood, from every tribe and language and people and nation. You made them a kingdom and priests to our God, and they will reign on the earth. Friends, the brokenness of the world exists for a reason. Your sin, my sin, the sin of every other human being has created real damage to God's creation. Sin distorts, sin destroys, and it also put us in place of deserving to be judged by the one who holds the ownership over his creation. And every attempt that humans have ever made to try to solve the world's problems will always fall short, because nobody is thinking about or capable of fixing the root core problem. Nobody can fix the one cause for all other problems, except for Jesus. Because Jesus died for your sin, he alone is found worthy to unfold God's plan for humanity. And he shows us that the judgment of God is not where the story has to end. When the whole story unfolds, we see the mercy of God to give us hope in the future. We see a plan that shows us God's redemptive judgment on sin, the defeat of evil, and the restoration of all things. And no matter who you are or what background you come from, through his death on the cross, Jesus can write a new story for your life. People from every nation and every tongue and every tribe, no matter who they are, can have a new story written for their life because of Jesus. Without Jesus, there is no hope for your future. But with Jesus, everything changes. And wherever you see injustice and wherever you see sin destroying people's lives, there is hope for a better day, because there was one person who is worthy enough to reveal the fullness of God's plan to us. Now, I know that for some of us, that's really theoretical. We love the idea of hope, but we're still living in the tension of the now and the pain and the difficulties and the challenges that we experience in life. And so John gives us one more reason why God is worthy of your affection and trust. He says God's worthy because he reigns forever. Look at verse 11 of Revelation 5. I looked and I heard the voice of many angels around the throne, and also of the living creatures and the elders. Their number was countless thousands, plus thousands of thousands. And they said with a loud voice, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slaughtered, to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing." I heard every creature in heaven, on earth, under the earth, on the sea, and everything in them say, "Blessing and honor and glory and power be to the one seated on the throne and to the Lamb forever and ever." I want you to see those words, "to the one seated on the throne." In the ancient Jewish tabernacle, priests never sat down because their work was never completed. It was an ongoing task. But when Jesus died on the cross and said, "It is finished," it was finished. The work was done. And when Jesus sits down on the throne, He is saying the work is done. And when a king sits down on his throne, everyone knows he's the one in charge. He's the one with authority. He's the one that ultimate honor is due. And the beautiful, amazing thing about Jesus is that his reign lasts forever. He doesn't have a term limit where we just vote on to the next guy. His reign lasts forever. Everything else that you have ever deemed to be worthy of your life's attention or admiration is just simply temporary. Every single day, there are businesses and politicians and counselors who offer to make your life better in some way. Who offer to try and give you things that every human longs for, things that are going to bring you joy and peace and hope. But the truth is, nothing they can offer you is going to last very long. The average person in Canada is only going to live about 82 years. The average length of a career is about 42 years. Your marriage, your sex life, your health, your golf game, your favorite hobby, they all have only so many years. How many of you remember Blockbuster stores? Remember Blockbuster stores? Yeah, okay. For those of you who don't know what a Blockbuster store was, people used to actually go to a store, pay money to rent a movie or a video game for a night. And if we were late returning it, we got charged a fee, right? Had to pay a penalty. And some of us had our membership cards removed because we didn't pay the penalty. The amazing thing about Blockbuster was it tapped into something in human culture. It tapped into this need to just escape the world and relax. Their theme was make it a Blockbuster night. And thousands of Blockbuster stores existed until they didn't. And today there's only one store left. There's something about humanity that we jump into the next thing that's going to give us a sense of hope and a peace and a future, and then that thing wears off and we jump to the next thing that's going to give us a sense of hope and peace and a future, and then we jump to the next thing, and we're constantly looking for that thing. But I'm here to tell you, all of those things are going to come and go. While we wonder what's going to happen to us in the future, while we all work harder to try to create a better future for ourselves, Jesus is on the throne room of heaven as King, saying, I've got it all in my hands. While we worry and work to solve our own problems or the problems of the world around us, Jesus is King over everything. While some of us go looking for types of pleasures to bring us relief, the King who is sitting on the throne tells us that in his presence there are pleasures that last forever. Doesn't that sound amazing? Psalm 16:11, you reveal the path of life to me. In your presence is abundant joy, and at your right hand are eternal pleasures. Friends, you are never going to find anyone more worthy of your attention, affection, and trust than God. Nobody. One of the things that I've been praying for as we've come to this message today is I've been asking God to help us really see how remarkable he is and how weak everything else is that we turn to in life. God is the only one who can transcend everything and anything in this life. Some of us in this room, you are paralyzed right now by fear and worry about whatever it is that's going on in your life. And today, God is inviting you to lift your eyes from the thing that's right in front of you and to look up and to see him in all of his glory. Something happens to worry and anxiety when we see God. Some of you are so caught up in the comfort and wealth of life, but you've just become spiritually lukewarm. And I want to say to you, the best gift you can give to yourself is to stop looking at stuff to give you life and look up to heaven and remind yourself that God alone is the one who can give you life. Some of you are hoping that science and education can help you make sense of life, when what you really need is the one who is the God who created the universe that science is trying to figure out. Some of you are so caught up in doing so many good religious things, you've lost sight of who God is. It's like you're a hiker in the mountains and you're focused on the trail that's in front of you and just going and making sure you conquer the trail that's in front of you instead of actually looking up and going, holy smokes, look at these mountains. When you see how worthy God is, the only response that will make sense is to worship him. It's the only response that makes sense. That's the response throughout these 2 chapters of Revelation. Day and night, the 4 living creatures could never stop saying, holy, holy, holy. They couldn't stop talking about God. In chapter 5, they all fall face down before him in worship. They declare that he alone is worthy of their honor and praise and glory. In verse 14 of Revelation 5, it even ends with worship. The elders in heaven fall down and worship. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to spend some extra time responding to what God has shown us about himself by worshiping him. And I don't mean just singing some songs. I mean wholehearted, fully engaged, fully focused, passionate worship to the only one who is worthy of your praise and your affection and your trust. As we go into this time of worship, I want to give you freedom to respond to God in whatever way the Holy Spirit is telling you to. For some of you, that means you're just going to stay seated for the whole time. For some of you, that means you're going to stand. For some of you, you may need to go to your knees as you see the majesty of who God is. There's room up here at the front if any of you want to come and kneel or stand in the presence of God. But we are together as a church going to join with the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of angels who are in heaven right now, who can never stop talking about how holy God is. We are going to join with all of creation in declaring that our God is worthy of all that we can give him and beyond that. So let's sing and worship the one who is worthy of our praise.